Hello there. Good afternoon. I am Dr. Terry James Gingrass, and I'm still fighting technical problems. But this is Dr. G's ADHD chat. This is a program about making the world safe for ADHD. And you notice I just touched my face, which I'm not supposed to do. Anyway, we are in the midst of, I think we're starting week 2 of this whole coronavirus mess. And like all catastrophes, there are some things that happen that are going to make big changes in our world. Okay, and I'm a clinical psychologist. Good morning, Lisa. Thanks for watching. And anyway, I'm a clinical psychologist. I think I've said that before, and a neuropsychologist. And I used to be in private practice. Who knows after all this is over? But a lot of my, or if not most of my, practice was ADHD. And I also do ADHD coaching, mostly with ADHD entrepreneurs, which is a really fun group to work with, by the way. And I bet you right now they are all ramping up big time. Now I know this is the time when all you folks who have younger kids with ADHD are thinking, oh, am I going to do to keep him or her occupied? And there is a lot to be said for knowing how to do that. But I talked about that last time. I talked about, needing to have a structure, needing to have a routine. Don't deviate too much from your normal day-to-day stuff. And for gosh sakes, do everything you can to get them as much exercise as possible. And this social distancing thing, it sounds sort of lame, but it is important. It is a way of avoiding certain amounts of contamination. And I don't understand some people who are keeping their kids home from school because they don't have a choice, actually. But they're letting them go to sleepovers. It's like, wait a minute, does that make sense to you? Maybe, but I'm not sure how. But that's not really what I'm most interested in right now, because I know that ADHD parents are tougher than the average bear. They've had to do a lot more raising their children than folks who don't have ADHD kids. And they also have to be fighters. They have to be persistent. They have to do more. They have to deal with, basically all the things that most of us have tried to avoid our whole lives, like the principal's office and that sort of thing. If you have an ADHD child, you will see the principal's office. I can almost guarantee it. But what's really got me interested and excited is thinking about the implications of this whole coronavirus thing. We're changing dramatically right now. And it's going to change. Some of that change is going to be permanent. Some of that change will be the way the future goes. And I think for some of us, for parents of ADHD kids, and for people, adults with ADHD, has the potential to be a gold mine. What is going to happen, I believe, is that many of the businesses we take for granted, many of the small brick and mortar businesses, are going to die. They're just not going to be around. they will, first of all, not be able to last through however long this whole, what are we calling it? Any social distancing. Anyway, they're not going to last. They're going to go out of business because most businesses, small businesses particularly, are kind of hand to mouth. That is, they have to keep working to clear expenses. And restaurants particularly are low profit margin kinds of affairs. They don't make a lot of money. Some of them don't make any money on the food, actually. They depend on the alcohol, the beer, wine, whiskey, etc., to make expenses. Well, if all you're doing is taking orders for food, by definition, you're missing out on that whole lucrative liquor sales part of things. And that's going to kill a lot of businesses. That's going to kill a lot of restaurants. And I think those of us who don't have the kind of businesses that are primarily brick and mortar. Okay, like my coaching. My coaching is not primarily brick and mortar. Most of the time, I don't actually face-to-face with coaching clients. That's a phone call thing. Sometimes it's a Zoom thing, but most of the time it's just a phone call thing. I see the potential for that to really ramp up and become the way people do stuff. I mean, why do I want to risk traffic and hassles with parking and all that stuff to go to my psychotherapist's or coach's office when I can do it over the phone from wherever I am? And I think that's one of the things that'll probably continue on with after this pandemic, if you will. And I think that's one of the things we're going to change. And one of the advantages of that, like for ADHD kids, okay, is our school system basically trains compliant cubicle sitters. CCSs, is that right? Compliant. I like that. I may use that again. That's basically what they do. They emphasize compliance, and they emphasize doing what you're told when you're told to do it, and so on. Guess what? Well, I don't need to tell the folks who have ADHD kids. I don't even have to tell the folks who have ADHD. ADHDers don't like that kind of stuff, and they aren't very good at it. They don't do very well at it. But increasingly, people are going to be in charge of their own fate. People are going to run their businesses out of their living room or den or office or whatever they've got at home, because it's more efficient than renting an office space. They're like, I've got an office, okay? I've been in that office for over 20 years. But if I weren't seeing patients face to face, and I do a lot of testing, so I have to have a place for people to come to be tested. That wouldn't be very convenient in the living room or wherever. But if I drop the clinical practice, I drop the neuropsychology part of things. I become a full-time coach and whatever you want to call it, internet marketer or knowledge purveyor or whatever. Basically do more of this kind of stuff, but just do it all the time. I don't need to have a separate office. I mean, I probably need a studio, a little more polished than what you're seeing right now, but I don't really need a separate office. And I don't really need the hassle of having to drive to a separate office. And I certainly don't need the hassle of having to pay for a separate office. And I am not alone. So I have been pushing this, I think, perhaps a little softly, but if you have an ADHD child, you probably have a budding entrepreneur on your hands. And you need to be thinking about getting them to move in that direction, to become knowledge connoisseurs. And right now, any of us can become an expert on a given area very quickly compared to what it used to be like. I mean, when I was writing my dissertation, it took me months to do the lit search, the lit review. Basically, that's where you review the old research that's already been done in the given area that you're planning on doing your study. Nowadays, oh man, you just hit Google and you've got the answer instantly, or the answers. And I mean, it's so much faster, so much more efficient, that it is hard. I'm envious, I tell you. I watch grad students now, and it's just like, you don't know what it's like to be sitting in there with a bunch of psych abstracts, trying to cover 10 years of, the psych abstract is about that thick, and it's got every piece of research that's been done for the given time period. They publish it monthly, and then at the end of every year, the libraries bind it all into one book for each year. And it can take forever to find, or it could in the old days take forever to find exactly the references you were looking for, and research any new ones that you didn't know about. I'm going on and on about that, but that was a big part of my life at one time. Nowadays, life is so much easier. You can become knowledgeable in a variety of areas very rapidly. So when you're looking at your ADHD child and going, I don't know what he's going to do, they will be good at being experts. They are people generally of strong opinions. So some of that'll be cool. Some of that'll be neat. Some of that'll be scary probably, but that's the way change goes. But we are going to have the potential to, I don't know how different things are going to be after the next, however many months it is before we're done with this whole coronavirus thing. But I don't know how long it's going to take. But when we are done, we're going to have a whole bunch of people who spent 2 or 3 months, whatever it is, basically on their own, without being told what to do, having to fill their time by themselves, and they're going to get sick of streaming videos and all that stuff, hopefully, and want to do something a little more constructive, a little more creative. And that's a good thing to encourage your ADHD child to do, and it's a good thing if you're an ADHDer yourself to start doing all the time. ADHDers have interests. They have sometimes incredibly strongly held interests. It's a good time to become an expert in that area. It's a good time to think about, what can I tell people about this that would be important for them, that would be helpful, that would let them live a better life, that kind of thing. That is the kind of good stuff that's potential out there. Your ADHDers typically are pretty quick on their feet. They are outside the box thinkers. tend to be creative. As a parent, you need to encourage that. As an adult, you need to identify your areas. What am I really good at? What am I really interested in? And it doesn't have to be something, deep, metaphysical or something. It could be you're interested in the Chicago Blackhawks, But there's something there that you can do. I mean, there are people on the internet who make a living just predicting the outcomes of college football games or professional hockey games, or they just set up their microphone and their camera, and they go at it. I don't know how many times a week, and they are direct. They get a following, and then they start. They do podcasts that they get paid for. Hey, you figured out a way to make a living without working in an office, without being in a cubicle somewhere. We're going to see more of that. We're going to see more people doing independent things because, cubicle sitting is kind of makes your soul shrivel up. And especially for folks who tend to be outside the box thinkers and creative thinkers, cubicles are the box, man. They are exactly where you don't want to be. And so I think the biggest advice I can say is look at this time as an opportunity. Look at this time you're going to have as a chance to try something new, as a chance to get your message out. Figure out what your message is, but get your message out. That's the opportunity you get. Like I was joking with my wife the other day because I've been in clinical practice for a long time, and we have been talking about, for the last year and a half or so, about closing down the clinical practice and moving into more coaching and online work. And it's like, this is set up to have us actually do that without taking any risks, really. It doesn't cost us anything to develop a course, put it out there, put a price tag on it, and hopefully get paid for it. And that's going to be the new model, I think, for our economy. People are going to be more inclined to do that sort of thing, and people are going to be looking for more of that kind of thing. I think the biggest things we're going to see are, a lot of the service industry jobs, I'm sorry, are going to go away. It's the rich are going to get richer in some areas. Amazon is going to rule the world. And, I was reading today that Amazon is like hiring 100,000 new people, more people, to do warehouse and delivery work. And a bunch of the other really big names are doing exactly the same thing. And they're hiring hundreds of thousands of people. So a lot of the jobs that we used to take for granted, being a waiter, being a waitress, being a fast food worker, being a retail person, they may not be there. They may not. And that's going to be a change. That's going to be a big change. So to help as an ADHD parent, to keep the anxiety down, you need to be looking for the opportunity. Okay, don't, I'm going to stay calm. No, look for the opportunity. That's a better way of controlling anxiety than doing your deep breathing exercises or whatever. Although, I mean, I teach the heck out of that kind of stuff, so I think it's important to know. But it is important to know where you want to go. What do you want to do with your life? What do you want to do besides the job? What other things are out there? Because I believe that this is going to just open up the world for a lot of people who will be working from home. But even more than working from home, they'll be working from home for themselves. And I think this presents a big opportunity for ADHD kids. I mean, I swear, a lot of the battle with ADHD kiddos is that they are outside the box thinkers. They are not particularly interested in being compliant, and they have to make it through at least 12 years of a system that insists on that. It is not. Increasingly, that whole kind of reasoning and thinking and being is out of step with what the economy's doing anyway. But I think this whole coronavirus thing is going to accelerate that, so that companies are not going to demand that you attend. They're going to let more people work from home, and they're going to insist that you have at least the computer skills to be able to do that. So, when you're a parent of an ADHD child, encourage their creativity, encourage their interests, and make sure they have at least basic computer skills. Most of it, you don't have to worry about that, The old joke is, if you can't do something on your computer, find yourself a teenager and ask them how. That's pretty much the way it is. And all those things we're wringing our hands about how many computer hours of computer games they play and all that stuff. And shoot, nowadays, colleges and universities are developing e-game teams and giving scholarships to gamers. Who would have thought? Anyway, so it's a brave new world. And pay attention. And notice what's changing. It may be real helpful to you. Okay, I'm Dr. Terry James Gingras. This has been Dr. G's ADHD Chat. I'm a little fired up about all this stuff. And my website is terrygingrasphd.com. And if you have any questions or anything, post them. I don't know whether it's down there or over up to the side, but somewhere. And we'll catch you next week. See ya. Thank you.